Today I want to talk to anxious and hypervigilant Christians who are wondering how to have a balanced devotional life. My name is Jamie Eckert. I share biblical content for Christians with OCD predominantly, and I talk about how we can find balance from some of that excessive anxious energy that comes with having obsessive compulsive disorder. The verse that I'm wanting to base our devotional thought on today is from Mark chapter 1 and verse 35, and you have probably heard this verse used many times in different sermons about devotional life and prayer life and how to start your day right. And let me just read it for you really quickly. I know you know this very well. Mark 1:35, now in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. Many times I have heard this verse used as a rationale for early morning devotional time. Get up before the crack of dawn, make sure you spend your hour with Jesus, make sure that you pray, make sure that, this sort of this whole checklist of things that are often talked about in order to have a really healthy life with Jesus. And, extra points to you if it's like pre-dawn, because that just seems to be talked about as the ideal time of the day, which I will argue that some people have a better devotional life if they pray and read in the evening. But anyways, that's another story for another time. I want to talk about how do we actually find that balance, and even more so, like, what is the rationale for why we're spending time with Jesus? One of my critiques about some of these sermons and talks that we hear is that oftentimes devotions are looked at, or maybe not on purpose, but somehow subconsciously it seems to be expressed that devotional time is a thing that you do in order to leverage a certain experience that you want to get out of Jesus. So you want to have power, you want to hear the Holy Spirit directing and guiding you, you want to be secure from making mistakes. Go have your devotions. You're going to get what you want. In a way, it's true. There's a subtle leveraging in this that I'm not really comfortable with, because what about those times that we do have our devotions and everything turns out terrible? It can leave us spinning and trying to figure out, well, what did I do wrong? Did I not pray hard enough? Did I not read the right thing? I must have not heard God's voice and God's guidance because maybe I wasn't connected just right. For many Christians, many Christians don't go into this kind of a spiral, but for believers that have obsessive compulsive disorder, it can just really be easy to get stuck on ruminate. So anyways, I want to talk about a few thoughts that I had about this verse. They're maybe a little disconnected, not all in some particular order. But first of all, I want to just talk for a second about the rationale as to why is Jesus doing this. And this was the point that hit me the most. I was sitting here and reading this because the small group that I'm in is going through a study on Mark right now. And I was reading this verse and I was like, why did Jesus do that? Why would Jesus, the Son of God, incarnate in human form? Yes, he's human, and yes, he is our example. So there's that part of the argument that Jesus did it to be an example to us. But other than that, why would he feel the need or the urge to not just spend time in prayer and communion with the Father, but why would he rise up a great while before day after apparently a fairly busy day the day before? Why would he need to go and spend so much time with the Father? Why not 10 minutes? I mean, think about this, guys. This is the Jesus that said in the Garden of Gethsemane, remember when the mob came to take him? He's like, hey guys, right now, if I ask my Father, he's gonna give me so many legions of angels. You guys are gonna get just wiped off the face of the planet. Jesus could have blinked one eye and everybody that was trying to crucify him would have just disappeared into the earth. Even when he raised Lazarus from the dead, it's really interesting to analyze the prayer. And the prayer was predominantly for the people standing around him. He's like, Lord, Father, I'm not praying this this is so that they know that the relationship that we have is really special. That's what this prayer is for. I know that you always hear me, Lord. So really, Jesus, the relationship that he had with the Father was such that even the minutest, smallest microsecond of a prayer, I mean, that's all that Jesus needed. So if that's all that he needed, then why was he expending more energy and more time to go and be with the Father a great while before day, as it says in the scriptures? So I was thinking about this, and some of you guys who have been following my channel for a while, you know that I have a baby. She's almost a toddler, and I'm not really ready for her to be a toddler yet. She's really trying to walk, and she's yeah, she's getting the bruised face look because she's trying to walk. Anyways, I've been seeing scripture through the paradigm of parenthood over the last 1 year, and that's been really impactful for me. But I got it. Like this verse suddenly made sense when I was looking at it through the lens of parenthood. And I was thinking about when a mother is pregnant and that baby is attached through the umbilical cord, like so cozy in that nice, warm, comfortable little womb, and there's not a care in the world. The baby's never hungry, the baby's never cold, never hot, never anything except perfectly comfortable. And then on some cataclysmic day, that poor little baby has to leave its comfortable home and get born into this cold, bright world. And that's a big shock. And all of a sudden, the umbilical cord gets cut, and what was once this precious union is no longer. And progressively, as that baby gets older, there are things like separation anxiety and having to cry to get his or her needs met. And there's just a sense of, like, when the baby is now outside of the mother, the baby doesn't immediately recognize that they're not connected anymore. And I think some of you who are parents, you've observed this before, that the baby really protests being separated from the parent. Like, I'm not sleeping in my crib. I will sleep on top of you. Thank you very much. Because that's where I'm comfortable being. I'm comfortable being right next to mom. I smell mom. I see mom. I feel mom. I hear mom. That's where I want to be. That's where I'm comfortable. Because I'm so used to being like in that sense of oneness with my mom. Because for the last 9 months, that's where I was. And I had that thought going kind of in my mind, that sort of background idea when I read this verse. And I said, oh, I get it. It's not that Jesus was doing all of this like devotional time with the Father because he wanted to get something out of it, or because he had this grand goal of being like a stellar example to all believers that would come in the future. Like, I don't think it was any of that. Jesus was spending time with his Father because he wanted to. Because he felt comfortable there in the bosom of the Father, just as a little baby. He's like, I don't want to be separated from my mother. I want to be right on top of mom. Don't put even an inch between us. I need to be with my mother because that's where I feel the best. And Jesus and the Father were completely inseparable. And now all of a sudden, Jesus has become human and the dynamics are somehow different. I don't know how to describe all of the inter-Trinitarian dynamics, but it's different now. And Jesus is just going back to being in the closest possible relationship with his Father because that's where he's comfortable. That's what's home for him, is the bosom of his Father. And I think it's even interesting if you continue reading in the passage some of the terminology that's being used. It says in verse 36, and Simon and those who were with him searched for him. When they found him, they said to him, everyone is looking for you. But he said to them, let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also, because for this purpose I have come forth. Now that word come forth, isn't that so interesting? Doesn't it make you also, maybe it's just me, but I'm thinking about giving birth when I think about somebody coming forth. Where is Jesus coming forth from? John 16 says that he came forth from the Father. And so it's that cozy, spiritually restful place of being in the arms of his Father. It's from there that he's come forth into this world where people spit on him and pull his beard and whip him and say terrible, evil things against him. Being in that place of prayer and solitude and communion with his Father, that's Jesus' safe place. That's where he can leave behind all of the stresses of the world and really just sort of sink into the Father's embrace. And I guess my simplistic understanding of this verse is Jesus was not investing so much time in his devotions because there was something that he needed to get out of it, but rather because that's where he felt good. That's what he wanted. That's what he was drawn to. And for me, that's just a beautiful thing because it's a reminder that if I observe my devotional life becoming rigid and goal-oriented in a negative sense, that's when I think that I'm probably out of the boundaries of what the Bible was ever intending when we were invited into the same experience that Jesus had. Now, some of you who are watching this, you probably know what I'm talking about. Maybe your own devotional life is, like I mentioned, very rigid and compulsive. And I definitely think that stepping back in order to pause, reassess, heal, and then re-engage can be really helpful. So I don't want you to like go away feeling guilt tripped, like, oh no, I feel so bad because I know I'm being manipulative with God, you know, with my prayer life and with my devotions and everything. Don't feel bad about that. We're all in an experience of growth at this point. None of us are perfect. But one thing that I tell many of my clients who have unhelpful and unenjoyable devotional lives, I say, take a break and step back. Maybe spend a couple of weeks just like going for nature walks instead of like reading and like making yourself crazy with so much reading and so much compulsive prayer. Just take some nature walks and just be in you know, creation is God's second book, as they say. Just spend time letting your brain sort of cool down, calm down a little bit. Try to reassess. Okay, am I doing this because I'm trying to medicate my anxiety by doing a bunch of compulsive behaviors? Am I doing this because I really want to get to know the Father? Am I doing this because that's just what everybody else expects from me? I think it's totally okay to reassess and then try to re-engage in a healthier way after you've had a little bit of a break. It is hard to change directions midstream, so that's why I think a small pause can be really helpful just to begin gaining some perspective. And again, some of my other thoughts on this passage, it's not that we have to literally get up before the sun and go to some solitary place. Some of you guys are living in circumstances where there is no solitary place for you. In my schedule, my baby wakes up at like 5 or 5:30, so it's a little bit hard for me to do early morning devotions. And I found that it's just a lot better for me to spend my time with the Lord in the evening after she goes to bed at a decent hour. So I think there's definitely flexibility here as far as like time and place and method. But for me, the important point is the motive. Am I doing this out of a compulsive urge, or am I doing this because spending time with God just is what feels fulfilling to me? A couple more points and then I'm going to quit. Some of you would say, well, no, Jamie, spending time with the Bible, spending time in prayer, it does not feel good to me. It feels very anxiety inducing. So does that mean that I should just pause indefinitely? And I will say this, as an anxious believer, somebody who has a diagnosis of one or more anxiety disorders, yeah, we need to be careful of letting our emotions speak to us too much. There is definitely going to be an aspect of you just doing what needs to be done, even though your emotions are not aligning themselves to what you would like them to be. So there are going to be times where you're like, you know what, I don't really want to read my Bible because I know everything in there is going to trigger me, but read your Bible anyways. Not a whole lot, don't read stuff that you know is going to, like, don't go to Revelation, for example, if you're like very, very anxious and easily triggered, but try to wait until you are in as calm a state as possible. So maybe you know yourself and you're like, well, in the evenings is when I feel the calmest, so maybe that's the right time for me to read. Or, you know, on my commute home from work, that's a good time to listen to some Bible recordings. You know, find a time that you're less likely to be in your OCD mind, more in your sound mind, and just read a few verses. Keep your feet in the water, you know, like don't get avoidant. We don't want to develop an avoidance compulsion with Bible reading and prayer, even if you are very anxious about it. I would say just keep doing it little by little, and in the back of your mind you're like, I know, Jamie, but I'm not doing it for the right reason, so maybe it doesn't count. I'm not doing it because it just feels comfortable to relax in the bosom of the Father like Jesus. Okay, that's fine. Have that as your end goal, and you're like, Lord, that's the experience that I want to have. It's not the experience that I have right now. Lord, right now you seem scary to me. Right now I'm very intimidated by anything that has to do with you, and I don't enjoy this. In fact, I feel resentful about this. I feel scared. I feel like fill in the blanks of whatever it is that you're feeling. It's okay. We do want to sort of recognize that whole thing, and there's a certain amount of pushing through that is going to be required. So yes, take a break, try to reassess, try to re-engage in a healthier way. But when you are re-engaging, remember that you're probably going to have some walls to still break through. And my encouragement is to start small, keep your feet in the water, don't entirely let it all go, don't develop that avoidance compulsion. But as you continue just very gently pushing yourself, the hope is, and you know, the case of many people that I've seen, is that we slowly begin redeveloping, or maybe for the first time developing, a healthy perspective of God's character. And so that's my hope for you, that your own devotional experience can be a really, really healthy one, a balanced one that's coming from a motive of you not trying to leverage God, not trying to earn brownie points, not trying to medicate your anxiety, but simply to dwell with the Father and just find that oneness with Him every day that is sort of mirrored, that's being mirrored in the relationship of Jesus and His Father. So I hope that's encouraging to you. Don't be discouraged about your devotional life. Just keep pressing forward, and I'll see you again in one of my next videos.